Billionaire married his mistress to finally have children until his ex-wife arrived with triplets. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty bless every woman with a peace that softens every wound, a strength that never collapses, and a love so pure it transforms every heart it touches. May her nights be protected, her mornings be bright, and her days overflow with kindness, dignity, and honor. She is the heart of every home, the quiet healer of every pain, the soul that carries the world on her shoulders yet still gives love without limit. May every woman be lifted, cherished, respected, and surrounded by blessings that follow her wherever she goes. May her prayers be answered gently, her burdens become lighter, and her future open like a beautiful sunrise filled with endless mercy, hope, and joy. My beautiful family, I see you watching the stories but not staying till the end, not liking, not commenting, and sometimes I feel like a fool writing my heart out. Tell me honestly, why the silence? Did your brother Mr. Peter fade from your heart? If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. The crystal flute shattered against marble, and Joaquin Jackson knew his life was about to follow. He'd been laughing at something his fiancée Clarissa said when the ballroom doors opened. The engagement party was perfect, white orchids climbing every column, champagne flowing like promises, 200 guests celebrating his future. Then Betty Davis walked in, and the past arrived wearing Louboutins and bringing 3 children who had his eyes. The string quartet faltered mid-note. Joaquin! Her voice cut through the string quartet like a blade through silk. We need to talk. Every head turned. Betty looked nothing like the broken woman he'd divorced. Her natural hair formed a crown of coils, her emerald dress cost more than this entire party, and she moved through the crowd like she owned the air itself. Diamond earrings caught the light, the ones he'd refused to buy her during their marriage, claiming they were too extravagant. She'd clearly bought them herself. Behind her, 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, stood perfectly still, watching him with identical expressions of cool assessment. Clarissa's fingers dug into his arm. Who is that? My ex-wife. The words felt like glass in his throat. Betty stopped 10 feet away. She didn't smile, didn't shout, didn't cause the scene he would have expected. Instead, she gestured to the children with one elegant hand. Serafina, Atlas, Soleil, meet your father. The room inhaled as one. Joaquin stared at 3 faces that were unmistakably his. The same dark blonde hair, the same sharp jawline, the same grey-green eyes that looked back at him from the mirror every morning. The girls were identical, impossible to tell apart, except one wore glasses. The boy stood between them, his hand clutching his sister's. They looked expensive, well cared for, loved, everything he'd wanted to give children who didn't exist. What is this? Clarissa's voice rose 3 octaves. What kind of sick joke? DNA doesn't lie. Betty's voice remained calm, almost bored. Though apparently neither do birth certificates, school records, or the pediatrician you and I once shared. Remember Dr. Whitmore? She still practices. She remembered me when I brought them in for their checkups, always asked how you were doing. Joaquin couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The math tried to calculate itself in his head, but all he could see were 3 children who shouldn't exist. He divorced Betty because she couldn't give him the one thing he'd wanted his entire life. He'd spent 8 years with Clarissa, waiting for children that never came, going through fertility treatments and specialists, and hope after hope that died in waiting rooms. And Betty had been raising his children the entire time. You're lying. But even as Clarissa said it, she was looking at the boy, Atlas, whose nose was exactly like Joaquin's baby pictures. I don't lie, Clarissa. That's more your specialty, isn't it? Betty's smile was all teeth, sharp enough to cut. How many fertility treatments did you tell him you went through? 12? 15? Funny, because I have connections at every clinic in this city, and not one has any record of you ever walking through their doors. Not one appointment, not one consultation. 8 years of lies. Clarissa went white. Several guests had their phones out now, recording. This would be everywhere by morning. Betty pulled a business card from her clutch, placed it on the nearest table between a champagne bucket and a flower arrangement that cost more than most people's monthly rent. My lawyer's information, my assistant's direct line, and my home address, since you'll want to verify everything I've said. The children and I leave tomorrow for our home in Montecito. You're welcome to arrange a paternity test through proper legal channels. She paused, letting that sink in. Though I should warn you, my legal team doesn't lose. Wait. Joaquin finally found his voice. It sounded nothing like him. You can't just... They're 7 years old. They'll be 8 soon. Isn't that wonderful? You missed 7 birthdays, 7 first days of school, 7 Christmases, 7 years of bedtime stories and scraped knees and nightmares and laughter. Betty's voice never rose above conversation level, but every word landed like a sentence. But don't worry, they had a parent who showed up, just not you. The girl with glasses, Serafina, he thought, spoke for the first time. Mum, can we go? This place smells like fake flowers and sad people. Several guests gasped. A few laughed before catching themselves. Of course, baby. Betty touched her daughter's shoulder, then looked back at Joaquin. Oh, and congratulations on your engagement. I hope this marriage works out better than ours did, though I suppose that's a low bar, considering you were sleeping with her while we were still married. She turned to leave, the children moving with her like a trained unit, like they'd done this 1,000 times, protected each other, moved as one. Betty, wait. She paused, didn't turn around. My lawyers will be in touch. The children deserve to know their father's medical history. After that, whether they want to know anything else about you is entirely their choice, not yours, not mine, theirs. They're human beings, not property to be claimed. Then she was gone, 3 small hands in hers, leaving behind a ballroom full of witnesses and a man who suddenly realized he'd spent 8 years chasing a future he'd already destroyed. Joaquin looked down at the business card. Betty Davis, CEO, Catalyst Ventures. A Montecito address that probably cost more than his penthouse. A life he knew nothing about. Clarissa was crying, mascara running, grabbing his sleeve. Joaquin, I can explain. The treatments, I was going to tell you, but he wasn't looking at her. He was watching the ballroom doors, where his children had just walked out of his life for the 2nd time, except this time he actually knew what he'd lost. The champagne had gone flat in every glass. The orchestra had stopped playing, and Joaquin Jackson, who'd spent his entire adult life building an empire so he'd have something to leave to children, realized he'd built it all for ghosts, while his real legacy was being raised by a woman who'd learned to survive without him. A woman who'd become stronger in his absence than she'd ever been in his presence. His mother appeared at his elbow, her face a portrait of disgust. I always told you Betty was too good for you. Looks like she finally figured that out. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. Those children are beautiful, brilliant, everything you wanted, and you'll never deserve them, not in this lifetime. She walked away, and Joaquin stood alone in the center of his engagement party, surrounded by people who were already texting their friends, already spreading the story of the man who'd thrown away everything that mattered for a woman who'd been lying to him the entire time. Somewhere in Montecito, 3 children were going to bed, and he didn't even know what their favorite bedtime stories were. Chapter 2. Some crowns are earned in silence. Betty Davis had learned to build empires in the dark. She stood in her office the next morning, watching the sunrise paint Santa Barbara gold, and allowed herself 5 minutes to feel the weight of what she'd done. Then she locked it away, straightened her shoulders, and went back to being the woman who'd turned $50,000 and a broken heart into a venture capital firm worth 9 figures. Her assistant knocked softly. Joaquin Jackson is here. Security called 3 times. He's very insistent. He usually is. Betty didn't turn from the window. Send him up. Let's get this over with. When Joaquin walked into her office, she barely recognized him. Not because he'd changed. He was still handsome in that casual, wealthy way, still wore suits that cost more than cents, but because she'd forgotten how small he seemed when he wasn't the center of her universe. How ordinary, how remarkably unremarkable when stripped of the power she'd once given him. He stopped in the doorway like he'd hit a wall. "This is your office?" "Top floor, east wing. The view helps me think." She moved to her desk, a custom piece of walnut and steel that commanded the room. Behind her, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean. Around her, awards and photos documented a life he knew nothing about. Forbes 30 Under 30, TechCrunch Disruptor Award, photos with senators, tech giants, people who actually mattered. "You have 10 minutes, I have a board meeting." "Betty, those children have names. Use them." He flinched. "Serafina, Atlas and Soleil. Are they really mine?" "DNA test is scheduled for tomorrow if you'd bothered to call my lawyer like I suggested." "Yes, they're yours." "No, I won't explain why I never told you. And no, I'm not interested in your feelings about any of this." "You were pregnant." His voice cracked. "When I divorced you, you were carrying my children and you didn't tell me." Betty sat down, crossed her legs, and looked at him with the same expression she used on founders who thought they could lie to her about their revenue. "Your lawyer made me sign a document the day you filed for divorce. Remember? The one that said I was waiving all rights to your assets to prove I wasn't a gold digger trying to trap you with false pregnancy claims. I signed it because I was young and stupid and still in love with a man who didn't exist." "I never asked you to sign that. Your lawyer, your money, your instructions. Don't insult me with semantics." She opened a folder on her desk, movements crisp and controlled. "That same day I went to the clinic, found out I was pregnant, triplets. The doctor warned me it would be difficult, that I might need bed rest, that I should have support. I drove home to tell you, practicing the words the entire way, and found your note saying you'd moved out and left the divorce papers with your attorney. You didn't even have the courage to tell me to my face." Joaquin grabbed the back of a chair. "You should have told me." "Why? So you could accuse me of lying? Of trying to trap you? Of faking a pregnancy like you'd accuse me of faking everything else?" Betty's voice stayed level, professional. "You spent 3 years telling me I was defective, broken, that I'd failed as a woman because I couldn't give you children. You had an affair with Clarissa because she made you feel like a man, remember? You told me that, the day you asked for the divorce. I was wrong. You were cruel." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through old files. "I kept records. Every text message where you blamed me. Every email where you suggested I wasn't trying hard enough. Every argument where you made me feel like my only value was in my uterus. Should I read them to you? I have a particularly lovely one from your mother's birthday party where you told your college friend that you were going to leave me because I was, and I quote, useless as a wife." His face went grey. "I didn't tell you about the pregnancy because I'd spent 3 years being told I wasn't enough. And I decided my children deserved better than a father who'd already proven he didn't want them. Not really. You wanted an heir, a trophy, proof of your virility. You didn't want to change diapers at 3 in the morning or deal with colic or learn that children are actual human beings, not accessories." Betty's jaw tightened. "You wanted the Instagram moments, the perfect family photos, the legacy. You didn't want the work. That's not fair. Neither is abandoning your wife for your mistress and then being surprised when she doesn't invite you to the baby shower." Betty stood. "I built this company from nothing. I raised 3 children alone. I had complications during the birth, spent weeks in the hospital, almost died twice, and came out of it with 3 beautiful babies and a determination to never need anything from you again." Joaquin looked like she'd hit him. "You almost died? While you were on your honeymoon in Bali with Clarissa. Remember? 2 weeks of Instagram posts about finding your soulmate, about new beginnings, about perfect sunsets and perfect love." Betty walked to the window. "My best friend sent them to me while I was in the ICU, hooked up to machines that were keeping me alive, really helped with the recovery, really inspired me to fight for my life so I could raise 3 babies alone. Betty, my name is Ms. Davis. We're not friends. We're not family. We're two people who share DNA with 3 children, and that's the only reason you're in this building." She turned back to face him, and he saw what he'd missed last night. This wasn't the woman he'd married. This was someone who'd been forged in fire and come out titanium. Someone who'd survived him and discovered she was stronger without him than she'd ever been with him. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, her tone brooking no argument. "You'll take the paternity test. Results will confirm what you already know. Then my lawyers will contact yours about medical history exchange. The children will decide if they want contact. Not you, not me, them. They're old enough to have opinions, and I've raised them to use their voices, to know their worth, to never let anyone make them feel small. I have rights. You have what the law gives you, and my legal team is significantly better than yours. Test me on that, and you'll find out exactly how much money I'm willing to spend to protect my children from disappointment." Joaquin looked at her like he was seeing a stranger. "What happened to you?" Betty smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "I became the woman I needed when you left. Now get out, I have actual work to do." He didn't move. "How did you do it? Build all this?" "The same way I survived loving you, one day at a time, refusing to break." She pressed the intercom. "Security, please escort Mr. Jackson out." "Betty, please." "Miss Davis." She sat back down, pulled a file toward her and began reading. "And your 10 minutes are up." She didn't look up as security arrived, didn't watch as Joaquin was led out, still trying to find words that didn't exist, didn't let herself feel anything until she heard the elevator doors close and silence return to her office like a blessing. Then she pulled up the photo on her phone, 3 babies in a hospital bed, her arms around them, her face exhausted but glowing with fierce love. The picture her friend had taken the day they'd all survived. She'd been right. Her children had deserved better than a man who only wanted them when they were convenient, and she'd spent the last several years making sure they got it. Chapter 3. 3 Storms in Small Bodies. The DNA results came back on a Tuesday, and Joaquin felt the world shift under his feet. Probability of paternity, positive. 3 children, his children. His lawyer called it a miracle. Joaquin called it a reckoning. He'd spent the last week dismantling his life with Clarissa. The confrontation had been ugly. Her tears, her excuses, her eventual admission that she'd never wanted children at all, had been stalling for years, hoping he'd give up or she'd figure out a way to make the lie permanent. She'd wanted the lifestyle, the status, the Jackson name. She'd just never wanted the actual family. He'd ended it without ceremony, packed her things, changed the locks, let his lawyer handle the logistics. None of it mattered. All he could think about were 3 children who existed without him. Betty's lawyer had sent a proposal, supervised meetings, neutral location, 1 hour, once a week. The children would participate if and when they chose to. Joaquin could accept or pursue legal channels, which would take months and likely result in the same outcome, with added trauma for everyone involved. He'd accepted. The meeting place was a family therapy office in Santa Barbara, all soft colors and comfortable furniture designed to make difficult conversations easier. Joaquin arrived 20 minutes early, paced the parking lot, and tried to figure out what to say to 3 children who had every reason to hate him. Betty arrived exactly on time, the triplets flanking her like small soldiers. They'd grown in the week since the engagement party, or maybe he was just seeing them clearly for the first time. Serafina still wore glasses, her expression analytical. Atlas carried a sketchbook, his fingers stained with charcoal. Soleil bounced on her toes, energy barely contained. 1 hour, Betty said. They've agreed to meet you? That doesn't mean they've agreed to anything else. She led them inside, and Joaquin followed, feeling like he was walking to his own trial. The therapist, Dr. Yolanda Harris, smiled warmly and introduced herself. She explained the ground rules. Everyone could speak freely. No one had to answer questions they didn't want to. The goal was simply to begin a conversation. Joaquin sat across from his children and realized he had no idea how to start. Serafina saved him, or destroyed him. Hard to tell. Our mum said you didn't know about us. Is that true, or is that just what makes the story easier? Yes. His voice cracked. I didn't know. If I had, you would have what? She tilted her head like she was studying a chess problem, analyzing his weaknesses. Stayed married to Mom? Not cheated on her? Actually wanted us? Or would you have accused her of lying, like you accused her of everything else? Serafina, Betty warned softly. No, it's okay. Joaquin leaned forward. You have every right to be angry. I'm not angry, Serafina said. I'm curious. Mum says anger is useful for action but terrible for thinking. So I'm thinking. And I'm trying to understand why you're here now when you weren't here before. Atlas spoke next, his voice quieter. Did you ever love our mum? The question gutted him. Yes, very much. I didn't know how to show it. I was so focused on what I wanted that I forgot to see what I had. That's a non-answer, Serafina said. Politicians give non-answers. Are you a politician? I'm a coward, Joaquin said, and Betty's head snapped up. I was scared I'd turn out like my father. He left when I was young, never came back. I spent my whole life terrified I'd wake up one day and want to run, so I ran first. From your mother. From responsibility. From anything that made me feel like I might fail. Soleil, who'd been silent, suddenly jumped in. If you wanted kids so bad, why'd you throw Mom away? Because I'm an idiot who thought the problem was her, not me. And by the time I realized I was wrong, I'd already burned everything down. Do you love Clarissa? Atlas asked. No, I thought I did, but I was in love with the idea of starting over, of pretending the past didn't exist. Turns out you can't build a future on lies. Serafina stood up, walked over to him and stared directly into his eyes. Joaquin forced himself not to look away. He owed her that much. The courage to face her judgment. Our mum taught us that some people don't deserve second chances. She said second chances are earned, not given. Do you know how to earn things? Or do you just expect them because you're rich? Her voice never wavered. 8 years old, and she had more backbone than most adults he knew. Than he had, certainly. I don't know, Joaquin admitted. I've never had to earn much. Money was always easy. Everything else was harder. Good. Serafina walked back to her seat. At least you're honest about being useless. Betty covered a smile. Atlas pulled out his sketchbook, flipped through pages of drawings. Landscapes, portraits, abstract designs that showed real talent. Then he stopped on one and turned it around with careful deliberation. It was a painting of an empty chair, single chair, spotlight, nothing else. The emptiness was so complete it hurt to look at. This is you, Atlas said simply, his voice steady and devastating. In our lives, empty. Joaquin felt something crack in his chest. Soleil wasn't done. Mom took care of us when we were sick. She learned how to braid hair from YouTube because Serafina wanted cornrows for her chess tournament. She drove Atlas to art class, even though it was an hour away and she was tired from work. She reads to us every night, even when she has conference calls. What can you do? Nothing. The word was ash in his mouth. I can't do anything you need. I can't replace the years, can't undo the pain, can't magically become the father you deserved, can't erase the damage I did to your mother, can't fix what I broke. So why are you here? Serafina again, relentless, unforgiving, perfect. Because you exist. And I spent 8 years thinking I'd never have children, mourning something I thought I'd lost. And all that time you were alive and growing and becoming these incredible people. And I know I don't deserve to know you. But I'm hoping, maybe, you might let me try. Try what? Soleil demanded. To be better. To learn who you are. To show up, even when it's hard. To prove that biology isn't enough, but maybe with work, it could become something. The triplets looked at each other in that way siblings do, having a conversation without words. Finally, Serafina spoke. We'll think about it. That's all I can ask. No, she corrected. You can ask for whatever you want. We'll decide what you get. The hour ended. Betty gathered the children, and they left without saying goodbye. Dr. Harris smiled sympathetically. That went well? They hate me. They're protecting themselves. That's healthy. She walked him to the door. Mr. Jackson, those children don't need a hero. They need consistency. Can you be consistent? I don't know, he admitted. Then figure it out. Because they will test you every single time, and the moment you prove them right, that you're unreliable, that you'll disappoint them, they'll lock you out forever. Children are remarkably good at self-preservation when adults teach them to be. Joaquin walked to his car and sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. He'd been rejected by billion-dollar deals that hurt less than Serafina's cool assessment. Atlas's empty chair painting hung in his mind like a judgment. Soleil's question, "What can you do?" echoed. The answer was nothing, but maybe he could learn. Chapter 4. Begging looks different on a broken man. Joaquin had never begged for anything in his life, but he discovered that desperation looked a lot like flowers returned with a note. We don't need gifts. We need commitment. The first delivery had been orchids, exotic, expensive, delivered to Betty's office with a card for each child written in his careful handwriting. They'd been returned within an hour, untouched. The second attempt, books, carefully chosen based on hours of internet research about gifted children, came back with a handwritten note from Serafina. We have a library. Try harder. Actually try. He tried harder. Custom art supplies for Atlas. Returned. A chess set made of hand-carved ebony and ivory for Serafina. Returned. A telescope for Soleil, who he'd learned loved astronomy. Returned with a photo of her using a better one. Betty never said a word, just kept sending everything back, a silent reminder that his money meant nothing here. His lawyer suggested legal action. Joaquin fired him. His board of directors started asking questions when tech blogs picked up the story. Billionaire's secret children made headlines. CEO denied custody after abuse allegations trended on social media. Stocks dipped. Investors called emergency meetings. Business partners suddenly became unavailable. Joaquin stopped answering, stopped caring, stopped pretending his empire mattered when his actual legacy wanted nothing to do with him. His mother showed up at his penthouse unannounced. You look terrible, Lorraine Jackson said, walking past him into the living room. She'd always been direct. It was where Joaquin got it from. Thanks. Betty won't return your calls? Betty won't accept my existence. He poured himself scotch. The children think I'm a waste of space. They're not wrong. Lorraine sat down, elegant even in casual clothes. I liked Betty. She was good for you. Made you think about someone other than yourself. Lorraine's eyes were hard. She challenged you, pushed you to grow, and you hated her for it, because growth is uncomfortable and you've always chosen comfort over character. Then why didn't you stop me from divorcing her? I tried. You weren't listening. You were too busy blaming her for not giving you what you wanted, never asking if you deserved it, never questioning if you were capable of being the father you claimed to want to be. Joaquin drank. It didn't help. I kept in touch with her, you know, Lorraine continued, her voice matter-of-fact but weighted with judgment. After the divorce, she asked me not to tell you about the children, said you'd made your choice and she was making hers. She was protecting them from you, from the man you'd become. He nearly dropped the glass. You knew? For about 6 years, she sent me photos every Christmas. Beautiful children, smart, kind, everything you could have wanted, raised by a woman you threw away like garbage. Why didn't you tell me? Because she asked me not to, and unlike you, I respect her wishes. Lorraine stood. I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to tell you that if you want any chance with those children, you need to stop trying to buy them and start proving you can show up when it's not convenient. She left him with that, and Joaquin realized his mother had chosen Betty's side a long time ago. The next week, he tried a different approach. He wrote letters, long ones, not asking for anything, just explaining. His childhood, his father's abandonment, his fear of failing, his mistakes with Betty, his regrets. He didn't send them, just wrote them, building a record of thoughts he'd never shared with anyone. He started therapy, real therapy, not crisis management. Dr. Philip Torres listened to him describe 8 years of running from fatherhood while desperately wanting children, and simply said, "That's called cognitive dissonance. You wanted the idea, not the reality." The truth hurt worse than anything Betty had said. He volunteered at a literacy program, reading to children who reminded him of what he'd missed. He donated to single-parent organizations in Betty's name, anonymously, because even he wasn't stupid enough to think she'd appreciate public gestures. He sold the penthouse, too many memories of Clarissa, of the life he'd built on lies, moved into something smaller, started learning to cook because he'd always had private chefs, and realized he didn't know how to make basic meals his children might eat. None of it mattered. Betty's lawyer sent a formal letter. "Cease all contact attempts. The children need space. Future meetings will be scheduled at their request, not yours." He'd been locked out. His business partner, Dominic Shaw, found him in the office at midnight, staring at quarterly reports he hadn't read. "You're going to lose everything," Dominic said. "I already did. I meant the company. Board wants you out. Stock's down 40%. Investors are calling you a liability." "Let them." Joaquin closed the file. "I built this company to leave a legacy. Turns out my legacy hates me." "So that's it? You're just giving up?" "I'm accepting reality. Betty was right. I wanted an heir, not children. Well, I got children, and they want nothing to do with me." Dominic sat down. "For what it's worth, I met Betty at that charity gala last month. Before all this, she's terrifying. She's perfect. She told me about her company, Catalyst Ventures. They're doing better than we are. She's outperforming us in every market. You know why? Because she's brilliant and I'm an idiot? Because she actually cares about the people she invests in, treats founders like humans, not profit margins, builds relationships, shows up." Dominic leaned forward. "Everything you never did in your marriage." Joaquin laughed bitterly. "Thanks for the pep talk. I'm not trying to make you feel better. I'm telling you that if you want those kids to give you a chance, you need to become someone worth knowing. And right now, you're just a rich guy with regrets. That's not enough." After Dominic left, Joaquin pulled up Betty's company website. Photos of her at events, speaking at conferences, mentoring young entrepreneurs. Articles about her investment philosophy, people over profit, relationships over returns, building something that lasts, everything he'd failed to do with her. He found a video of her speaking at a tech summit. The topic, resilience. "I was told I was broken," she said to the audience, her voice clear and unwavering. "Told I'd failed at the one thing women are supposed to do naturally, and I believed it for a while. Let someone else's limitations become my identity. Let cruelty define my worth. Then I had children, nearly died bringing them into the world. And realized something. I wasn't broken. I was just trusting broken people to define me." The audience applauded. "So I stopped asking permission to be excellent, started building the life I wanted instead of waiting for someone to give it to me. And I taught my children the same thing. Your value isn't determined by people who can't see it. It's determined by what you build when no one's watching." The video ended. Joaquin sat in the dark, understanding for the first time what he'd actually lost. Not a wife, not children, but the chance to be part of something bigger than his own ego. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Serafina. Mom doesn't know I'm texting. Atlas painted another picture. It's called The Man Who Learned to Sit Still. Just thought you should know we're paying attention." The message disappeared. Probably deleted from her end. But for the first time in weeks, Joaquin felt something other than despair. They were watching, testing him, waiting to see if he'd prove them right or surprise them. He had no idea how to be a father, but maybe he could start by learning to be worth knowing. Chapter 5. The Cost of 8 Lost Years. The email arrived with video attachments and a subject line that made Joaquin's hands shake. "What you missed." No message, no explanation, just files. 23 of them. A deliberate number, one for each month of pregnancy, perhaps. Or maybe just every moment Betty thought he should see. Every moment that proved he'd abandoned a complete, perfect life. He opened the first one with trembling fingers. Betty's voice. "Say hi to the camera, babies." 3 toddlers in a bathtub covered in bubbles. Serafina laughing as Atlas tried to build a bubble tower. Soleil splashing water everywhere, her giggles infectious. The date stamp read 3 years ago. Joaquin watched his children be children, and something inside him shattered. The second video, Serafina's first chess tournament. She couldn't have been older than 5, sitting across from a boy twice her size. The footage showed her thinking, moving pieces with careful precision, then looking up at the camera with a grin when she said, "Checkmate." Betty's voice off camera. "That's my girl." Third video, Atlas's first art show. A gallery filled with children's paintings, and there was his son, standing next to a canvas covered in swirling colors. A woman asked him what it meant, and Atlas, shy and quiet, said, "It's what home feels like." Fourth video, all 3 of them learning to ride bikes. Betty running alongside, encouraging, catching them when they fell. Soleil crashed into a bush and came up laughing, leaves in her hair. "Again," she shouted. "I almost had it." Fifth video, the triplets asking questions at bedtime, their voices small and trusting. Soleil. "Mum, where's our daddy?" Betty's pause was audible, the weight of the question filling the silence. Then, "Some people aren't ready to be found, baby. But that's okay. We have each other. We'll always have each other." Atlas. "Does he know about us?" "No, sweetheart, and that's grown-up stuff you don't need to worry about." Serafina, always analytical. "Is it because we did something wrong?" "No, never. You 3 are perfect. Sometimes adults make choices that have nothing to do with their children. Your father made his choice a long time ago." Joaquin had to stop the video. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process 3 children, wondering if they were the reason he'd abandoned them. He forced himself to keep watching. Sixth video. First day of school. 3 backpacks, 3 nervous faces, 3 sets of eyes looking up at their mother for reassurance. Betty kneeling down, fixing collars, wiping tears with gentle thumbs. "You're going to do amazing things," she told them, her voice steady despite the camera shake that suggested she was crying too. "And when you come home, I want to hear about everything. Every single thing. The good, the scary, the confusing. All of it. 1 mother, 3 children, no father in sight. And they were fine. They were more than fine." Seventh video. A birthday party. Candles on a cake shaped like a castle. The triplets blowing them out together, Betty hugging all 3 at once. "Make a wish," she said. Soleil. "I wish we could stay this happy forever." 8th through 15th. Holidays, school plays, soccer games, doctor visits, everyday moments that added up to lives he'd never been part of. 16th. Atlas showing Betty a drawing. It's us, our family. 4 figures. Betty in the center, 3 small hands holding hers. No empty chair this time, just absence. 17th. Serafina winning another chess tournament, this time against adults. The announcer calling her a prodigy. Betty crying proud tears in the audience. 18th. Soleil's science fair project about stars. Her presentation confident, her smile bright, her conclusion, "My mom says we're all made of stardust, which means we're all connected to everything in the universe." 19th. The triplets sick with flu, all 3 curled up on a couch while Betty read to them. Her voice hoarse, clearly exhausted, but she kept reading until they fell asleep. 20th. A quiet moment. Just Betty and the children in a kitchen making breakfast, dancing to music, laughing about burnt pancakes, being a family. 21st. The triplets at the beach, building sandcastles, working together, arguing about architecture, finally creating something beautiful, Betty taking photos, her voice full of love. "My perfect babies." 22nd. Atlas asking, "Mum, do you think our dad would like us if he met us?" Betty's long silence. Then, Baby, anyone who wouldn't love you isn't worth knowing. Remember that. 23rd video, recent, maybe a week old. The triplets sitting together, Serafina clearly holding the camera with steady hands. We're making this for him, she said, her voice firm with conviction, not because we forgive him, but because he should know what he lost. He should see exactly what he threw away when he threw away Mom. Atlas. Mom almost died having us. Did he know that? Does he know she spent weeks in the hospital and came out stronger? Soleil. Does he know Mom built a company while raising us? That she never made us feel like we were too much or too hard? Serafina. Does he know we're not broken? That we're not missing anything? That we're complete exactly as we are? All three together. We didn't need you. We had her. And she was enough. The video ended. Joaquin sat in the dark of his apartment, surrounded by evidence of 8 years he'd never get back. 8 years of first words and lost teeth and scraped knees and proud moments and scared moments and all the tiny pieces that add up to childhood. Betty had been there for every second. He'd been nowhere. His phone rang. Betty. Did you watch them? Her voice was neutral. Yes. Good. Now you know. Those children didn't spend 8 years wondering why you didn't love them. They spent 8 years being loved so completely that your absence didn't leave a hole. I made sure of that. Betty, I'm moving to London. Catalyst Ventures is expanding. We leave in 6 months. The children are excited. New schools, new opportunities. A fresh start. The words hit like bullets. You can't take them away. Watch me. I've already consulted lawyers. I have full custody. You have no legal rights because you never established paternity until 2 weeks ago. By the time any court case makes it through the system, we'll already be gone. Please, please what? Please don't take away the children you didn't want. Please give you another chance you haven't earned. Her voice finally broke. You don't get to beg, Joaquin. You lost that right when you called me defective, when you blamed me for your own inadequacy, when you chose another woman over me while I was carrying your children. I was wrong. You were cruel. There's a difference. Wrong is a mistake. Cruel is a choice. You chose to destroy me. I chose to survive you. We both got what we picked. If I could go back, you can't. None of us can. All we can do is move forward. And I'm moving forward to London with my children. You can either accept that or spend the next 6 months fighting a battle you'll lose. She hung up. Joaquin looked around his apartment. New, smaller, purchased because he'd thought downsizing meant growth. But it was just another empty space. Another place to be alone with his choices. On his laptop, the video of his children saying they didn't need him played on loop. They were right. They'd never needed him. Betty had made sure they had everything, except a father who showed up. Chapter 6. When powerful women build walls, they build fortresses. The courthouse smelled like old paper and broken families. Joaquin's lawyer had warned him this was a mistake. His mother had begged him not to do it. His therapist had asked if he was ready for the consequences. He'd filed for emergency custody anyway. Now he sat in a courtroom while Betty's legal team dismantled him with surgical precision. Attorney Helena Rousseau stood before the judge like she was arguing before the Supreme Court, every word calculated for maximum impact. Your Honor, Mr. Jackson claims he wants a relationship with these children, yet he failed to establish paternity for 8 years. He never paid child support, never attempted contact, never questioned why his ex-wife might have been pregnant when they divorced, never asked a single question that might have revealed the truth. I didn't know. Mr. Jackson will have his turn to speak, the judge said firmly. Helena continued, Ms. Davis has provided evidence of Mr. Jackson's emotional abuse during their marriage, text messages calling her defective, emails blaming her for infertility issues, recorded arguments where he threatened to leave if she didn't, quote, fix herself. She projected them on a screen, Joaquin's own words thrown back at him. You're useless as a wife. You can't even do the one thing women are supposed to do naturally. Maybe the problem isn't the doctors. Maybe the problem is you. I need a real partner, not someone who's broken. The judge's expression hardened. Ms. Davis also provided testimony from household staff who witnessed Mr. Jackson's affair with Clarissa Hayes during the marriage, hotel receipts, travel records, a pattern of deception that culminated in divorce papers served while Ms. Davis was, unbeknownst to Mr. Jackson, carrying his children. Helena pulled out another document. Medical records show Ms. Davis experienced severe complications during the triplets' birth. Preeclampsia, emergency C-section, postpartum hemorrhaging. She spent 17 days in ICU. During that time, Mr. Jackson was on his honeymoon in Bali with the woman he'd left her for. Murmurs in the courtroom. Ms. Davis nearly died bringing these children into the world. She recovered alone, learned to care for 3 infants alone, built her career while being a single mother. She did all of this while Mr. Jackson lived his life without consequence. The judge looked at Joaquin. Mr. Jackson, why should I grant you any custody rights when you've demonstrated no ability to prioritize these children's well-being? Joaquin stood. His lawyer looked nervous. I can't justify it, Your Honor. Everything Ms. Rousseau said is true. I was cruel. I was selfish. I abandoned my wife and didn't know I was abandoning my children too, but I'm asking for a chance to be better. Based on what evidence? The judge asked. Based on hope, Your Honor. That's all I have. Hope isn't enough in family court, Mr. Jackson. Children need stability, consistency, trust. You've demonstrated none of those things. Helena moved in for the finish. Your Honor, we'd like to call the children to testify about their preferences. Joaquin's heart stopped. No, please, don't make them. They volunteered, Helena said. They wanted to speak for themselves. The triplets entered the courtroom, and Joaquin wanted to disappear. They looked small in this space, but their expressions were resolute. Serafina wore her glasses and a dress Betty had probably picked out. Atlas carried a sketchbook like armor. Soleil's hands were clenched into fists. The judge spoke gently. Serafina, Atlas, Soleil, you don't have to be here if you don't want to. This is a grown-up decision. We want to, Serafina said, her voice clear and unwavering. We have things to say, things he needs to hear. All right, what would you like the court to know? Serafina spoke first. We don't need him, we have our mom. She's been enough our whole lives. Atlas went next. He makes our mom sad. We don't like when she's sad. Soleil finished. We want to go to London. We want our mom to be happy. We don't want to see him anymore. Each word was a knife. The judge nodded. Thank you for being so brave. You can go back with your mother. As they left, Serafina paused, looked directly at Joaquin with eyes too old for her age. You made Mom cry. We heard her on the phone with Grandma Lorraine. She doesn't cry in front of us, but we heard her. That's why we don't want you around. Not because we hate you, because we love her more, and anyone who makes her cry isn't worth knowing. She's worth everything. They walked out, and Joaquin understood he'd just lost everything that mattered. The judge reviewed the case files. The silence stretched. Finally, I'm ruling in favor of Ms. Davis. Full custody remains with her. Mr. Jackson will have no visitation rights at this time. The children have clearly expressed their preference, and given Mr. Jackson's history, I see no reason to force a relationship they don't want. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. News vans lined the street. Someone shouted questions about being denied access to his own children. Joaquin pushed through without answering. His phone exploded with notifications. Social media had turned the story into viral content. Opinion pieces about toxic masculinity, think pieces about modern fatherhood. His company's board had scheduled an emergency meeting. He ignored all of it, went home, sat in the dark, stared at nothing. His mother called, he didn't answer. Dominic texted, board voted, you're out as CEO effective immediately. Sorry. He'd lost his children, lost his company, lost everything he'd built his identity around, and he'd done it all to himself. The next morning, headlines read, Billionaire loses custody battle after abuse allegations. His stock holdings became worthless. Business partners distanced themselves. Friends stopped calling. Betty's company stock soared. Single mother CEO builds empire while raising triplets alone became the narrative. She was everywhere, magazine covers, interviews, speaking engagements, the woman who'd survived him and thrived. Joaquin watched from the outside as the world celebrated everything he'd thrown away. His mother finally showed up, using her key to get in. "You look like death," she said. "I feel worse." She sat beside him. "Those children were right to choose Betty. She earned their loyalty. You haven't." "I know. The London move is in 3 months. She accelerated the timeline." "I know. So what are you going to do? Wallow or change?" "What's the point?" "They don't want me." The court agreed. "Betty's taking them away. It's over." Lorraine grabbed his face, forced him to look at her with the iron grip only mothers have. "Listen to me. Those children don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present. Betty doesn't need you to fix the past. She needs you to stop making the present worse. And you don't need anyone's permission to become a better man. You just need to do it. Stop waiting for applause. Stop seeking redemption. Just change." "How?" "The same way Betty survived you. One day at a time, refusing to quit." She left him with that. Joaquin sat in the ruins of his life and made a choice. Not for redemption, not for forgiveness. Just to become someone who could look at himself in the mirror without hating what he saw. Chapter 7. Redemption isn't a grand gesture. It's 1,000 small ones. Joaquin stopped begging and started building. Not businesses, not empires, just himself, piece by broken piece. He sold his remaining company shares, donated half to organizations supporting single mothers, used the rest to live simply while he figured out who he wanted to become. Therapy became daily. Dr. Torres didn't let him hide behind excuses anymore. "You want to earn their respect?" Torres asked during one session. "Stop trying to be their father. Start trying to be a decent human being. The rest might follow, or it might not. But at least you'll be worth knowing." Joaquin enrolled in a parenting class at the community center, sat with teenage parents and grandparents raising grandchildren, learning basic skills he'd never considered: how to recognize emotional needs, how to communicate without anger, how to show up even when it's inconvenient. He volunteered at the children's hospital, not the pediatric wing where wealthy donors took photos for their social media, proving their philanthropy. The oncology floor where parents spent endless hours watching their children fight battles no one should face, where hope was measured in blood counts and treatment responses and days without pain. He read to kids too sick to read themselves, played games with children whose families couldn't always visit because they were working 3 jobs to pay medical bills, learned that being present meant sitting with discomfort, not running from it, meant witnessing suffering without trying to fix it or make it about himself. One afternoon, a nurse said, "You're good at this. Most volunteers can't handle the sadness." "I'm not running from sadness anymore," he replied. "I'm trying to learn what I should have known years ago." Weeks became months. He stopped checking social media for updates about Betty, stopped hoping for messages from the children, just focused on showing up, for therapy, for volunteering, for the small ways he could help people he'd never meet again. He started attending a support group for absent fathers, trying to reconnect with their children. Listened to stories worse than his, stories better than his, stories better than his, stories where men had fought for years just to get a phone call. "What made you realize you needed to change?" someone asked him during one meeting. "My daughter told me I made her mother cry. And I realized being hated was better than being nothing. At least hate means they feel something. What I had was worse. I was irrelevant." He ran into Betty's mother at a grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon. She looked at him like he was a stranger, like he was nothing, like he deserved to be nothing. "Mrs. Davis, don't." She held up a hand, her wedding ring catching the fluorescent light. "I have nothing to say to you. I'm not asking you to. I just want you to know I'm trying to be better." "For who? My daughter doesn't need you. My grandchildren don't want you. So who is this performance for?" "Me," he said quietly. "Just me." She studied him. Betty almost died, you know. I sat in that hospital for days not knowing if my baby would wake up, and you were taking sunset photos with your mistress. I know. I'm sorry doesn't cover it. Nothing does. No, it doesn't. She started to walk away, then paused. But I'll tell you what I told Betty when she wanted to hate you forever. Hate takes energy better spent on love, so if you're really changing, do it quietly and leave us alone. He took her advice. Stopped trying to contact them. Stopped sending things. Just lived his life trying to be someone his children might one day respect, even if they never knew it. Then, 3 months before the London move, he saw Atlas. The hospital had a partnership with local schools, art therapy sessions for pediatric patients. Joaquin was reading to a 7-year-old girl with leukemia when a group of student artists arrived for a mural project. They carried supplies, chattering nervously, excited to help. Atlas stood in the doorway, sketchbook in hand, frozen. Their eyes met across 20 feet of linoleum and medical equipment and the weight of everything unsaid. Their eyes met. Joaquin didn't move, didn't speak, just nodded once and went back to reading, giving the boy space to decide. Atlas stayed, worked on the mural, a garden scene full of hope and color. Joaquin finished his reading session and started to leave. You volunteer here? Atlas's voice was soft. Joaquin turned. Twice a week, for about 2 months now. Why? Because I needed to learn how to sit with people who are hurting without trying to fix them or run away. Turns out that's harder than it sounds. Atlas considered this. Mom says you're trying to change. I am. Not for her. Not to win you back. Just because I didn't like who I was. Are you different now? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. Atlas pulled out his phone, texted someone with quick practiced movements. A moment later. Mom says I can talk to you if I want, but she's picking me up in 20 minutes, and if you say anything that upsets me, she'll end this before it starts. They sat on a bench outside the pediatric wing. I painted another picture, Atlas said. It's called The Man Who Learned to Sit Still. You know what it means? Tell me. It means sometimes the hardest thing is just being present without expecting anything. That's what the empty chair was, expecting. The new one is just being. Joaquin felt his throat tighten. Your mom taught you that? Mom teaches us everything. How to be strong, how to forgive ourselves when we mess up, how to know the difference between people who are sorry and people who are changing. He looked at Joaquin directly. Which one are you? I hope I'm changing, but you'd have to decide that. Serafina says sorry is just a word, that actions are the only language that matters. She's right. Soleil says you're trying to buy us with charity work. Maybe I was at first. Now I'm just trying to be worth knowing, whether you know me or not. Atlas sketched something in his book. Joaquin didn't look. We're moving to London, Atlas said. Serafina's excited. She'll get to compete in international chess tournaments. Soleil wants to visit all the museums. Mum says it'll be an adventure. What do you want? Atlas stopped sketching. I want to stop wondering what you would have been like if you'd stayed. I want to stop painting empty chairs and men learning to sit still. I want to just paint gardens and stars and things that make people happy. Then paint those things. You don't owe me your art or your attention or anything else. But you're my father. Biologically. But fathers are built, not born. And I haven't built anything with you except confusion and hurt. Atlas closed his sketchbook. Betty's car pulled up. I'm going to tell Mom I saw you. She doesn't like secrets. Good. Secrets are how I destroyed everything the first time. Atlas walked toward the car, then turned back. If you're still volunteering here when we get back from London, maybe I'll come back to work on the mural. Maybe. I'll be here, Joaquin said, not waiting for you, just here. Atlas nodded and got in the car. Betty looked at Joaquin through the windshield. No anger, no pain, just assessment. Then she drove away. That night, Serafina texted, Atlas told us. Mom says you're allowed to volunteer wherever you want. Just don't expect credit for basic human decency. He didn't respond. The next week during group therapy, he shared what happened. My son saw me, talked to me, didn't forgive me, just acknowledged I exist. How does that feel? Dr. Torres asked. Like maybe I'm finally learning the difference between deserving something and earning the chance to try. 2 months until London, Joaquin kept volunteering, kept showing up, kept changing, not for applause, not for forgiveness, just because it was finally the right thing to do. Chapter 8. The hardest question has no easy answer. Betty Davis didn't cry in front of her children, but tonight she came close. Serafina found her in the office, staring at London relocation documents, her expression unreadable. "Mom, you okay?" Betty looked up, forced a smile. "Just tired, baby. The move is a lot of logistics." Serafina sat down across from her. At 8 years old, she had the unsettling ability to see through everything, to read people like chess opponents. "You don't look tired, you look sad. And you never look sad in front of us, which means something's really wrong." "I'm not—" "Mom." Serafina's voice was gentle but firm. "We're not babies. We know things are complicated." Betty set down her pen. "What do you want to ask me? Why didn't you ever tell him about us? Before now, I mean, before the engagement party." The question Betty had been dreading, the one she'd asked herself 1,000 times in the dark. "Because he chose someone else," she said carefully, each word measured. "And I didn't want you to grow up feeling unwanted, didn't want you to spend your childhood wondering why you weren't enough to make him stay. Because you were enough. You've always been enough. He just wasn't capable of seeing it. But maybe he would have wanted us if he'd known. Maybe. But maybe he would have resented me for trapping him, or resented you for existing. I couldn't take that chance." Serafina processed this. "Atlas has been researching him. Did you know that? He found articles about the custody case, read everything. He saw what he said about you during your marriage." Betty's chest tightened. "Serafina, he called you broken, defective, said you failed as a woman." Serafina's voice stayed level, analytical. "Those were his words. I showed them to my therapist. She said that's emotional abuse." "It was. So why do I feel bad that we're leaving?" The question hung in the air. "Because you're kind," Betty said softly, her voice catching. "Because you see him trying and some part of you wants to believe people can change. That's not weakness, baby. That's hope. And hope is the bravest thing in the world when you've been hurt." Soleil appeared in the doorway, Atlas behind her. Apparently this was an intervention. "We've been talking," Soleil announced. "All 3 of us, and we have questions." Betty gestured to the chairs. "Okay, ask." They sat together, a unified front. Atlas spoke first. "Did you ever love him?" "Very much, for a long time." "What changed?" Serafina asked. "He did. Or maybe he was always that person and I just refused to see it. Either way, the man I loved and the man he actually was turned out to be 2 different people." "Do you hate him now?" Soleil's directness was sometimes brutal. "No, hate requires caring. I mostly feel nothing. He's just the person who shares your DNA and taught me how strong I actually am." Atlas pulled out his sketchbook. "I've been drawing him. Not the empty chair anymore, just him, trying to understand who he is." He showed Betty the sketches. Joaquin in profile. Joaquin's hands. Joaquin's eyes. Sad. Searching. Lost. "These are beautiful, baby. They're honest. I don't know if he's good or bad. I just know he's trying, and I don't know what to do with that." Serafina took over. "Here's what we know. He was terrible to you. He abandoned us without knowing it. He only wants us now because we exist and he can't pretend otherwise. Those are facts." Betty nodded. "But here are other facts. He's been volunteering for months. Atlas saw him and he didn't make it about himself. He could have gone to the media, made himself look good. He didn't. He just existed. And when Atlas talked to him, he didn't make promises. He just admitted he's trying to be better." "What are you asking me?" Betty asked. Soleil said it plainly. Is it strong to never forgive? Or is it just safe? The words hit Betty like a slap. Where did you hear that? Your business partner, Aunt Renee. We heard her on the phone with you last week. She said you built an empire on being strong, but that real strength is knowing when to let walls down. You said she didn't understand, but maybe she does. Betty looked at her 3 children, brilliant, empathetic, impossibly wise beyond their years. Children who'd forced her to be stronger than she thought possible. You want to give him a chance. We want to stop wondering, Serafina corrected with lawyer-like precision. We're moving to London. New schools, new lives, new everything. And we'll always have this question. What if we'd let him try? What if he actually changed and we never knew? What if we made the decision out of fear instead of wisdom? What if he hurts you? Betty's voice broke. What if I let him in and he disappoints you and breaks your hearts? I can't watch that happen. Mum. Atlas took her hand. You can't protect us from everything. You taught us that. Remember when Serafina lost that chess tournament and you wanted to call the judges because you thought they were biased? You didn't. You let her lose and learn from it. This is different. It's not, Serafina said. You're scared we'll get hurt, but we're already confused. We see him changing and we don't know what to do with it. We need to find out for ourselves. Betty felt the control she'd held for 8 years slipping. I made a life where you never had to question if you were enough, where you never felt the absence of a father because I filled every space. If I let him in and he proves he hasn't changed, then we'll know, Soleil said simply, and we'll move to London without wondering. But if we don't try, we'll always ask ourselves if we made the choice or if you made it for us. The truth of it settled like stones. Betty had spent years protecting them from Joaquin's rejection, but in doing so, had she taken away their ability to choose their own relationship with him? I need time to think about this, Betty said. We're not asking you to forgive him, Serafina clarified. We're asking you to let us decide if we want to try. That's different. They left her alone with documents about London and questions she'd been avoiding. Betty called Renee, her business partner and closest friend. They want to give him a chance, Betty said without preamble, and you're terrified. I've built everything around protecting them. If I let him in and he hurts them, then you'll be there to help them heal, same as you've always been. Renee's voice was gentle. Betty, you're the strongest person I know, but you're confusing strength with control. Letting them choose isn't weakness, it's trust. What if I'm wrong? What if he's still the same man who called me defective? Then the kids will see it and choose you, just like they already have. But what if he's not? What if he actually changed and you kept them from knowing a father who finally grew up? Betty closed her eyes. I don't know how to do this. Yes, you do. You let them lead. You set boundaries. You watch carefully. And you trust that you've raised children smart enough to know the difference between words and actions. After the call, Betty sat with the weight of her choice. She'd built walls so high, nothing could hurt her children, but walls that keep pain out also keep possibility out. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lorraine, Joaquin's mother. I know the kids are asking questions. Whatever you decide, I support. But I've seen Joaquin these past months. He's different, not healed, not redeemed, just trying. That doesn't mean you owe him anything. It just means maybe the man you divorced isn't the man who exists now. Your call entirely. Betty looked at photos of her children on her desk. Their smiles, their confidence, everything she'd built for them. Then she looked at her calendar. 2 months until London. She made a decision. Not for Joaquin, not for herself, for 3 children who deserved to write their own story. Chapter 9. Some truths can only be spoken on your knees. The meeting room was neutral territory, not Betty's space, not Joaquin's, just a quiet office with a therapist and 4 people who needed to face the truth. Dr. Yolanda Harris sat with Betty and Joaquin on opposite sides, the triplets between them, a month until London. This was the children's request. "We have questions," Serafina said without preamble, "and we want real answers, not the version that makes you look better, the truth." Joaquin nodded. "Okay. Why did you blame Mom for not having kids when it turns out we existed the whole time? How does that make any sense?" He took a breath. Let it out slowly. "Because I was terrified I was like my father. He abandoned me when I was 6. Just left one morning and never came back, never called, never acknowledged my existence again. Didn't show up for birthdays or graduations or anything. And I spent my whole life afraid I'd do the same thing, want a family and then realize I couldn't handle it and run. So I focused on your mother, not getting pregnant as the problem. If we couldn't have kids, I couldn't fail at being a father. I couldn't become him." "That's backwards," Soleil said, her voice flat. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." "It's cowardly," Joaquin agreed. "I blamed her for my fear, made her feel broken when I was the one who couldn't face myself." Atlas spoke next. "Why did you cheat on Mom?" "Because Clarissa made me feel powerful instead of scared. Your mother challenged me to be better. Clarissa let me stay exactly as I was, and I was too weak to choose growth over comfort." "Did you love Mom when you left her?" Serafina asked. Joaquin looked at Betty. She met his eyes without flinching. "I don't know," he admitted. "I thought I did. But real love means putting someone else first. I only ever put myself first. So maybe what I felt was need, or possession, or fear of being alone. But love, I'm not sure I knew how." "Do you know how now?" Atlas asked. "I'm learning. Therapy helps. Volunteering helps. Admitting I don't have all the answers helps." Serafina leaned forward. "What would you have done if Mom had told you about us when she found out she was pregnant?" The hardest question. Joaquin didn't rush his answer. "I want to say I would have stayed, that I would have stepped up and been the father you deserved. But honestly, I probably would have accused her of lying, of trying to trap me. I was so convinced she was the problem that I wouldn't have believed her." "So we were better off without you," Soleil said flatly. "Yes, you were. Your mother gave you stability and love and everything I couldn't have provided. I would have damaged you the way I damaged her." "Why do you want to know us now?" Serafina asked. "Because you exist and I can't pretend otherwise. Because seeing you at that engagement party broke something open in me. Because I spent 8 years wanting children and mourning their absence while you were alive and growing and I was too stupid to ask the right questions." "That's not good enough," Serafina said. "Wanting us because we're here isn't the same as deserving to be in our lives. You're absolutely right. I don't deserve it. I just hope that maybe, someday, I might earn the chance to try." Betty had been silent, but now she spoke. "Tell them about the hospital." Joaquin looked at her, surprised. "Tell them," she repeated. "They should know." He turned back to the children. "Your mother almost died giving birth to you. She had complications, her blood pressure, bleeding, emergency surgery. She spent weeks in the ICU while you 3 were in the NICU, fighting for your lives while she fought for hers. And I was on my honeymoon with Clarissa, taking photos, enjoying myself, living my best life while your mother fought to survive bringing you into this world." The children's faces showed shock. "I didn't know," Joaquin continued. "But I should have. I should have checked, should have wondered, should have cared enough to ask questions. Instead, I was celebrating my new life while she was barely holding on to hers." "Mom never told us that," Atlas whispered. "Because I didn't want you to feel like you almost cost me my life," Betty said softly. "You gave me my life. Everything before you was just rehearsal." Tears streamed down Soleil's face. "You almost died and he didn't even know?" "He didn't know because I didn't tell him. That's my choice, my consequence. What matters is I survived. And I built something beautiful. You 3. Joaquin's voice cracked. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be your father. I'm just asking you to know that I see now what I destroyed, and I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't make those choices again." "Why should we believe you?" Serafina asked. "You shouldn't. Not based on words. Only actions matter. and I haven't had enough time to prove anything. So if you decide you don't want me in your life, I'll accept that. I'll just keep trying to be better even if you never see it." Atlas pulled out his sketchbook, showed a new drawing. 2 paintings side by side. 1, the empty chair. 2, a man sitting in that chair, but facing away, looking out a window at 3 children playing in a garden he couldn't reach. "This is where we are," Atlas said. "You're not empty anymore. You're there, but we're still separate, and I don't know if that changes." "It might not," Joaquin said, "and that's okay. You don't owe me proximity just because I finally woke up." Serafina stood, walked over to him, looked him directly in the eyes. "What if we give you a chance and you disappoint us? Then I'll have proven you right. And you'll move to London knowing you tried and I failed, but you'll never have to wonder. What if we don't give you a chance? Then I'll keep becoming someone you would have been proud to know, even if you never know it. Either way, my job is the same. Be better." She studied him for a long moment, then turned to her siblings. They had that silent conversation again. Finally, Serafina spoke. "We're not deciding today. We're going to talk about it. Think about it. Maybe try one more meeting before London. Maybe not. But you need to know. This isn't about you earning our love. It's about us deciding if knowing you adds anything to our lives or just complicates them. That's fair. And if we say no, then I respect that, and I leave you alone. Completely." Betty stood. "Time's up. Kids, let's go." As they walked out, Soleil paused, looked back at Joaquin. "You made Mom cry. We heard her. That's the hardest thing to forgive. Not that you left us, that you hurt her." Then she was gone. Dr. Harris looked at Joaquin. "How do you feel?" "Like I'm exactly where I deserve to be, begging for scraps from children who owe me nothing." "Is that self-pity?" "It's truth." Outside, Betty loaded the children into the car. "What do you think?" she asked them. "I think he's telling the truth," Atlas said, "about being broken before, about trying now." "I think words are easy, and time will tell," Serafina added. "I think I'm tired of thinking about him," Soleil said. "Can we get ice cream?" Betty smiled despite everything. "Yeah, baby, we can get ice cream." As she drove, she caught Serafina's eye in the rearview mirror. "You already decided, didn't you?" Betty asked. "We're going to give him one more chance," Serafina confirmed. "Not because he deserves it, because we need to know who he is when nobody's watching, when there's no court case or audience, just him being himself. And if he fails, then we go to London and don't look back." Betty nodded. "Your choice. Always." But as they drove away, she saw Joaquin in the parking lot, sitting in his car with his head in his hands. And for the first time in 8 years, she felt something other than ice when she looked at him. Not forgiveness, not trust. Just the faintest possibility that people might actually change. Chapter 10. 3 heartbeats and a chance at daylight. 3 weeks before London, Betty made a phone call that changed everything. "I'm cancelling the move. Indefinitely." Her business partner, Renee, was silent for a long moment, the weight of the decision settling between them. "Because of Joaquin? Because of my children. They need to make this choice without the pressure of a deadline, without the fear of losing their chance. London can wait. Their peace can't. Their emotional well-being matters more than any business expansion." Betty's voice was firm. "I've spent 8 years making every decision for them, protecting them from pain. Maybe it's time I trust them to protect themselves, to make their own choices about who deserves space in their lives." The decision had been building since that last meeting, since watching Serafina weigh evidence like a judge, since Atlas painted that image of the man in the chair, separated from the garden but no longer invisible, since Soleil asked if giving someone a chance made you weak or brave. Betty didn't know the answer, but she knew her children deserved to find out. She told them that night. "We're staying." Soleil's face lit up. Really? For now. The London office can wait. You three are more important. Serafina's expression was careful. This isn't about him, right? You're not doing this for him. I'm doing this for you, so you can take your time deciding what you want without feeling rushed. Atlas hugged her. Thank you, Mom. Betty set ground rules. Joaquin could see the children twice a month, supervised visits, no gifts, no grand gestures, just time to be in the same space and see who he actually was. The first visit was at a park. Joaquin arrived early, sat on a bench, and waited. The triplets approached cautiously. Hi, Joaquin said simply. Hi, they echoed. No therapy office this time, just a park on a Saturday afternoon. They walked. Joaquin asked about their interests. Serafina talked about chess strategy. Atlas described his latest painting. Soleil explained star formations with the enthusiasm of someone who loved the universe. Joaquin listened, asked follow-up questions, didn't try to impress them or prove anything, just existed alongside them. When the hour ended, they walked back to where Betty waited. Same time next week? Joaquin asked. Maybe, Serafina said. We'll decide. They decided yes. Second visit, a museum. Atlas wanted to see an art exhibition. Joaquin walked with them, offered observations but didn't dominate conversation. When Soleil got tired, he offered to carry her backpack. She let him. Small thing. Huge. Third visit, a bookstore. Serafina's choice. She grilled him on his reading habits, tested his knowledge of her favorite subjects. He admitted gaps, honestly. She seemed to respect that. Fourth visit, ice cream. Soleil's pick. They sat outside a shop eating sundaes and she asked, Do you think about us when we're not together? Every day, Joaquin admitted, but I'm trying not to make that your responsibility. What does that mean? It means missing you is my problem, not yours. You don't owe me your time or attention just because I finally realized what I lost. Good, she said. Mom taught us that people's feelings about us aren't ours to fix. Your mom's a smart woman. The smartest, all three said in unison. By the sixth visit, something had shifted. Not trust, not love, just comfort. The kind that comes from consistency. They were at a community charity event, Soleil's idea. She'd organized a fundraiser for children of divorced parents, and Joaquin had shown up to volunteer. Not as her father, just as a volunteer. He sorted donations alongside strangers, never mentioning his connection to the event organizer. When someone asked if he knew Soleil, he said, She's an amazing kid. Really special. Not my daughter. Not claiming ownership. Just respect. Soleil watched him from across the room. Later she walked over. You didn't tell them you're my dad. Didn't seem relevant. This is your event, your vision. I'm just here to help. She studied him. Then, without warning, hugged him. 3 seconds. Not magical. Just real. When she pulled back, she said, You're not our dad yet. You're just trying. Is that enough? It's more than before. The event ended. Betty arrived to pick them up. Saw Joaquin helping clean up without being asked, without seeking praise. Their eyes met across the room. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. That night, Betty sat with her children in their living room. So, she said, we need to talk about what happens next. We want to keep seeing him, Serafina said. Not because we forgive him, but because we want to see if he stays consistent. For how long? 6 months, Atlas suggested. 6 months of regular visits. If he shows up every time, doesn't miss appointments, doesn't make promises he can't keep, then we'll talk about more. And if he fails, then we were right, and we move on. Betty nodded. I can live with that. Soleil added, But Mom, we need you to be okay too. You can't just be strong for us. You have to be okay for yourself. Betty felt her throat tighten. I'm working on it, baby. Do you still hate him? Atlas asked. I don't hate him, I'm watching, waiting to see if the change is real or just temporary. That's fair, Serafina said. The next 6 months unfolded slowly. Joaquin showed up for every scheduled visit, never late, never with excuses. When Serafina had a chess tournament, he asked if he could attend. She said no. He accepted without argument. When Atlas had an art show, he asked the same. Atlas said yes. Joaquin sat in the back, didn't approach, just watched his son receive praise for his work. When Soleil organized another charity event, Joaquin volunteered again. This time, when someone asked about his connection to her, he said, "She's teaching me what it means to show up." Progress was measured in small moments, Soleil introducing him to her teacher as Joaquin instead of my mom's ex-husband, Atlas painting a new piece called The Garden with an Open Gate, Serafina asking him to help her practice a chess strategy because you think differently than Mom and I want a fresh perspective. Betty watched from the periphery, never cold, never warm, just present. 6 months became 7, then 8. One evening, Joaquin asked to speak with Betty alone. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he started. "I'm just asking if you can tolerate me being part of their lives. I know I don't deserve your trust." "You're right. You don't." Betty stirred her coffee. "But the kids are making their own choices, and I'm respecting that." "I never thanked you." "For what?" "For raising them so well that they know how to protect themselves from people like I used to be, for being enough that they never needed me, for surviving what I put you through and building something beautiful." Betty met his eyes. "I didn't do it for you." "I know. That's what makes it remarkable." Silence. "I'm not the same man you married," Joaquin said. "I'm not sure I'm even a good man yet, but I'm trying. And I'll keep trying whether they want me around or not." "Good. Because the moment you stop, they'll know, and they'll be done." "Understood." Betty stood to leave, then paused. "Joaquin, I don't forgive you. I might never forgive you. But I don't wish you pain anymore. That's progress. Don't waste it." She left him with that. The final scene came 3 months later, Soleil's 9th birthday party. Joaquin arrived with no gift, just showed up to help set up, per Soleil's request. She'd wanted her party to benefit a local shelter, donations instead of presents. The triplets ran around with friends. Betty managed logistics. Joaquin helped quietly, never seeking attention. At one point, Soleil's friend asked, "Who's that man?" Soleil glanced at Joaquin, then said, "That's Joaquin. He's trying to be part of our family. He's not there yet. Maybe he'll never get there. But he's trying. And Mom says we should at least acknowledge effort, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Not our dad. Not yet. Just someone trying." As the party wound down, the triplets found Joaquin cleaning up. "You showed up," Serafina said. "I said I would. People say a lot of things. I know, that's why I'm here." Atlas handed him a wrapped package. "We got you something." Joaquin opened it carefully. Inside, a photo frame with a picture of the 4 of them from the charity event. Not posed, just a candid moment of them working side by side. "This is..." His voice broke. "It's acknowledgement," Serafina said. "Not forgiveness. Not family. Just proof that you existed in this moment with us. What you do with future moments is up to you. Thank you. Don't thank us. Just keep showing up." They walked away to rejoin their friends. Betty appeared beside Joaquin, looking at the photo. "They care about you," she said quietly. "Not as much as they care about each other or me, but enough to include you in their story. Don't make them regret it." "I won't." "You can't promise that. You can only promise to try." "Then I promise to try, every day, for as long as they'll let me." Betty looked at him, really looked, and saw something she hadn't seen in over 8 years, genuine humility, raw vulnerability. A man who'd stopped performing and started existing. "We're not a family," she said. "We're not even friends. We're just people learning to exist in the same space without damage. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all it ever needs to be." Maybe that's everything. She started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. Joaquin? He looked up, surprised. You're doing better. The words cost her something. Not good, not forgiven, but better. And that matters. Not to me, I'm not ready for that, but to them. She gestured toward the children. They see it. They're testing you, watching every move, but they see it. Don't waste it. I won't. Good. She paused, and for the first time in years, her expression softened just slightly. I hated you for a long time, hated what you made me believe about myself, but watching you struggle to become someone decent, there's something almost human about it. You're not the villain I needed you to be anymore. You're just a man trying to fix what he broke. That's harder to hate. Betty, don't. She held up a hand. Don't make this a moment. I'm not giving you closure. I'm just acknowledging reality. You hurt me. You're trying to be better. Both things are true. We don't need to resolve them tonight. She walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement, leaving him standing in the aftermath of a birthday party that meant more than any boardroom victory ever had. But this time, something felt different. Joaquin watched his children, because they were his children now, not just biologically, but in the ways that mattered, the ways that were earned through showing up and shutting up and doing the work, laughing with friends, strong and whole and complete without him. Serafina noticed him standing alone. She said something to her siblings. Atlas looked over. Soleil grinned. Then all three of them walked over. We're getting ice cream, Serafina said. Mom says you can come if you want, but you're buying, and you don't get to pick the flavors. And if you try to turn this into a teaching moment or a bonding experience, we're leaving you there. Joaquin felt something crack open in his chest. Those are fair terms. They're the only terms, Soleil said. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Atlas pulled out his phone, showed him a new sketch. A garden, the same one from before. But now the gate wasn't just open. There was a figure standing at the threshold, not inside, not invited in, just present, waiting to be let in or turned away. This is where we are, Atlas said quietly. You're at the gate. We're deciding if you get to come inside. The gate's open because we're brave enough to risk it, but whether you walk through depends on you, on whether you keep showing up, keep being honest, keep being better. I understand. Do you? Serafina's eyes were sharp. Because the moment you disappoint us, the moment you prove you're still the man who hurt Mom, that gate closes. Forever. No second chances after this second chance. We're only doing this once. I know, and I won't waste it. Good. Soleil grabbed his hand, small fingers wrapping around his, trusting and terrifying. Because we're really good kids. Mom made sure of that, and you should know what you're trying to be part of before you mess it up. They walked toward Betty's car, the three of them chattering about ice cream flavors and whether chocolate counted as a personality trait. Joaquin followed behind, his heart hammering. Betty leaned against her car, watching them approach. When she saw Soleil holding his hand, something flickered across her face. Not joy, not forgiveness, but maybe peace, or the beginning of it. They invited me for ice cream, Joaquin said carefully. I heard. I'm driving. Betty opened the car door. You're sitting in back, and you're not allowed to talk about feelings or ask deep questions. This is just ice cream, nothing more. Understood. And Joaquin? She met his eyes over the roof of the car. I meant what I said. You're doing better. Keep doing better. They deserve someone who keeps showing up even when it's hard, even when they're difficult, even when you're tired. Can you do that? Yes. We'll see. They piled into the car. 3 children in the back seat with him, cramped and giggling, arguing over music. Betty started the engine, adjusted the mirror, and Joaquin caught her eyes in the reflection. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. And as they drove toward the ice cream shop, Soleil's head drooping onto his shoulder, Atlas showing him sketches on his phone, Serafina explaining the strategic importance of ice cream flavor selection. Joaquin realized something fundamental had shifted. He didn't get forgiveness, didn't get redemption, didn't get the fairy tale ending where everyone hugged and became a picture-perfect family. He got proximity, got invited to ice cream with conditions and boundaries, and the constant awareness that he was on probation. Got to exist in their orbit, earning every moment. He got 3 heartbeats beside him in the back seat. Got Betty's eyes in the rear-view mirror, not warm, not welcoming, but no longer filled with ice, just watching, assessing, giving him rope to either climb or hang himself with. He got one day at a time, one moment at a time, one chance at a time. The sun set over the city, painting everything gold. Children laughed in the back seat. Betty drove with the calm competence of someone who'd survived everything and came out titanium. And Joaquin sat at the edge of it all, not the center, not the hero, just a man who'd finally learned that showing up was harder than running, that consistency mattered more than grand gestures, and that some families aren't born but built. Slowly, carefully, with no guarantees. He didn't get his children back, he got invited to ice cream. And maybe in time that would lead to dinner, to homework help, to school plays and chess tournaments and art shows, to being present for the small moments that add up to a life. Maybe it would lead to the day Serafina called him Dad instead of Joaquin. Maybe it would lead to Betty looking at him without the weight of old wounds. Maybe it wouldn't. But tonight, driving through the city with 3 children who decided he was worth the risk, Joaquin understood something he'd never grasped before. Love isn't owed. Family isn't guaranteed. Trust isn't given. They're all earned, one moment at a time, one choice at a time, one scoop of ice cream at a time. And he finally understood that was enough. That was everything.